Some people believe the path to success is a straight line. Others will tell you that it's filled with curves and twists. But we're here to tell you that neither of those is correct, at least not entirely. Just look at some of the growth of the biggest companies of the last 3 decades. You'll start to quickly notice a pattern. They all start slow, then they shoot up to massive success. And that's no coincidence. That's the hockey stick rule at play. And by the end of this video, you'll understand how this growth works and when your own hockey stick is coming. But let's stop beating around the bush and get started. Welcome to Alux. The reality of growth. As we mentioned before, the way that success works for startups and entrepreneurs has shifted in the past couple of decades. We're seeing periods of flat to no growth, which suddenly explodes into a massive spike. If you were to graph that kind of growth, it would look a lot like a hockey stick, which is where the term comes from. If you look for them, you can easily find companies whose growth over time matches this exact idea. Don't believe us? Just take a look at Amazon's growth over time. It took years before the company started to see any real growth, and once the train left the station, there was no stopping it, no stopping that curve. But this wouldn't be much of a rule if we only had one example. The truth is, most major companies these days go through a similar growth period. If you look at Google's performance over time, you'll see the exact same phenomenon. You have a slow start for the first couple of years, then things just rocketed around the 4th year. Other fan favorites like Facebook and Netflix also show the same kind of growth. This is what the hockey stick looks like, but achieving this kind of success requires understanding each stage of this process and how to navigate them. While most definitions of the hockey stick will look at 3 stages, we actually prefer to consider it 4. Okay, so first you've got the tinkering stage, where all ideation happens. This technically occurs before the company gets properly going, but it's just as crucial as the rest of it. Then you'll have the blade years. These typically last 2 to 4 years and will be rough. This is what makes or breaks most startups. But if you survive the blade, you'll get to the inflection point. That's when everything clicks together and your business really starts to take off. However, if you're not prepared for it, it can quickly turn sour. And finally, the surging growth. Here's where things get exponential and you go up and up. Now, no exponential growth can last forever, so it's likely that at some point, things will start to slow down. However, by that point, you'll be so far ahead you won't even care that much. Okay, so now that you know all the stages, let's take a look at how to successfully make it through each one of them. Surviving the start. The hardest part about making it is surviving the first few years. The so-called blade years can last anywhere from 2 to 4 years, and they will be your first real test in the path to success. We have to be brutally honest here. The large majority of startups fail. Research showed that back in 2019, startups reached an insane 90% failure rate, with 21.5% failing in the first year. What we're trying to say here is you're going to have your work cut out for you. Surviving the blade years will require a lot of patience. Money is going to be tight and things will get stressful. There's no use in sugarcoating things. You need to be prepared in order to succeed. And a great way to do that is by looking at mistakes of others, seeing what caused them to fail. If you look at this graph, you'll see that one of the biggest issues startups face is running out of money right after making a product that no one wants. So, one of your first steps to prepare for the blade years should be securing an alternative source of income. Unfortunately, businesses don't run on hope. You're going to need some money. Many founders use their own savings, but this can quickly backfire if there are unexpected costs. Keeping a regular job on the side might be a better choice, as it would relieve some pressure as you weather the storm. But it's not all about money coming in, it's also about money going out. You need to be smart about the way you use the limited resources you have available. Find ways to do more with less, and don't spend money on unnecessary things. Buying a software subscription that will save your team a lot of time is a worthy expense, but spending too much money on marketing should be left for when you're really starting to take off. You'll want to see what market opportunities you have before committing to a marketing channel. Remember, revenue won't come in right away, so you need to be prepared for negative numbers at first. You'll also need a team that's laser-focused, as you should be. We're talking about John Wick levels here, okay? You all have to be people of focus, commitment, and sheer will.
John It's a matter of focus, commitment, sheer will.
You can't afford to fool around or waste time. Your time is one of the most valuable resources, and you need to be smart about it. You might feel tempted to make big changes quickly, but you can't let the panic set in. Iterating is an important part of the process, and pivoting can be critical to your survival, but you don't want to waste the momentum and energy you have. Before making any drastic changes, you need to consider your options. Is there something else you could tinker with? Maybe a different strategy you could take. Sometimes just making a small change can make all the difference you need. However, if that doesn't cut it, you shouldn't be afraid of pivoting to another idea. While it's not the most prevalent issue, failing to pivot is one of the things that cause new businesses to fail. But if you're smart about your money and your time and you stay focused on your goals, you'll make it through these tough blade years, and then it'll be time for things to start going up. The inflection point. Your business is taking off and you're feeling the highs of success. Congratulations! Just don't let it go to your head, okay? You'd be surprised that over 50% of new businesses can fail during their 5th year. You see, if you don't know how to navigate this explosive growth, it could actually end up dooming your business. One common mistake that startups make when they reach this point is trying to do huge changes to their model. It might be tempting to capitalize on all this growth by making changes, but you have to be careful not to rock the boat too much. Your model is what brought you to where you are today, and any changes to it must be done with extreme care. Remember, you have to be focused on what's working and only change what isn't. You should use these increased resources to assess your operation as a whole. Are there any areas that could use a boost? The inflection point can quickly get out of hand as your growth exceeds your business capacity. You need to keep an eye on which areas you need to scale and which ones you should wait. Scaling too quickly can cause you to outpace your own growth. Pay a lot of attention to the projections you have, as they'll tell you how much you can scale and how quickly. But you need to be ready to act on a moment's notice. The inflection point is a very delicate moment, and it'll become a balancing act between quick actions and careful consideration. But if you play it correctly, you will grow like you've never dreamed before. Because right around the corner of that small curve is the exploding success of the surging growth stage. Riding the wave. If you've made it this far, then that's it. Congratulations! Your company or project is officially successful. But now what? Can you sit back and sip margaritas on the beach? Not really. There's still lots of work left. You'll have some big decisions to make. As the leader of a corporation with exploding growth, you'll most likely have to make one of 3 choices: sell the company, continue as its leader, or hire a new CEO to manage things for you. There's really no wrong answers here, as each choice has its own set of pros and cons. Ultimately, it'll fall on to you to decide what's best for you and your business. In a lot of cases, selling your company will net you more money than you know what to do with. But if you're still young and you want to live a luxurious life, it might not end up making the cut. If you're just aiming for an early retirement, then it's probably a great choice. Choosing to remain as the company's CEO means you'll have to face a lot of new pressures and make decisions that you might not be ready for. It's one thing to run a startup, but it's another thing entirely to run a large company. And yet, nobody knows your company like you do. Sticking with it might be a great opportunity to really shape and expand your vision. Just make sure you've got some solid advisors. And finally, you could choose to let someone else take the reins. It doesn't mean that you have to exit the company, just take a smaller role. A CEO position is a management position, and you might find you're not really well suited for that kind of job. And there's nothing wrong in accepting that. Not everybody likes management. But you got the company this far, so you can let somebody else handle the hard work for you. However, the wrong CEO can do more harm than good, so keep that in mind. Make sure you're choosing someone that understands your business and who can keep up that growth that took you so long to achieve. I mean, nobody wants to leave their baby in the wrong hands. So with all of this said, the key to achieving hockey stick growth is being patient, focused, and meticulous. If you plan ahead and carefully consider your movements, you'll eventually come out on top. But be careful. Remember that success can often be, ironically, your worst enemy. You need to make sure you're scaling up your business at a rate that you can manage. It'll be a balancing act, but the prize for pulling it off will make it all worth it. All right, Aluxers, that's a wrap for us today, but of course, those true Aluxers sticking around until the end always get a bonus, so here's yours for today. The pandemic had its share of winners and losers. A lot of businesses struggled to survive the change in paradigm that we faced, but some managed to thrive in it. In Canada, 2 companies were perfectly positioned to take advantage of the situation. Good Food Market, an online grocery retail market, saw its shares quadruple between 2020 and 2021, and the stocks for telehealth market Well Health Technologies went from $1.90 Canadian per stock in March 2020 to almost $9 Canadian by 2021. That's why they say luck is actually being prepared for the right opportunity. And Aluxers, that's all for today, but we'd love to hear from you. What do you think about the hockey stick rule? Do you know any other examples of companies that achieved this growth? Did your company achieve this growth? Please share your opinion in the comments section below. We always love hearing your input.